no.
The moment the missiles struck targets in Israel, the signal spread across the global military network. Within minutes, commanders across the United States Air Force and other branches began receiving the same message: combat alert. This wasn't routine readiness. It was the kind of order that triggers an entire war machine. Across several American bases, the tempo changed instantly. Lights came on in hangars that had been quiet minutes earlier. Mechanics rushed toward aircraft lines. Operations officers started coordinating flight manifests. And on the tarmac, one aircraft type became the centerpiece of the entire operation: the massive C-17 Globemaster III. Rear ramps lowered. Engines prepared. Cargo bays opened like steel caverns waiting to be filled. Marines were loaded onto buses and rushed from their barracks toward the airfields. When the buses arrived, they didn't hesitate. Troops stepped off and marched directly up the aircraft ramps. Inside, the cargo teams were already working. Forklifts rolled forward carrying pallets stacked with ammunition crates, field radios, medical supplies, generators, and tactical gear. Each pallet had to be chained, strapped, and locked to the cargo floor. Every inch of space mattered. Because this aircraft wasn't flying empty. It was flying toward a crisis centered on Iran and the escalating conflict spreading across the Middle East. And the mission was only just beginning. As the first aircraft finished loading, something remarkable was happening across multiple bases at the same time. More C-17s were already preparing for departure. Cargo handlers guided armored vehicles up the ramps, MRAPs, tactical trucks, and combat buggies designed for rough terrain and urban warfare. Each vehicle was secured with thick chains anchored to the aircraft floor. Every strap was inspected twice. Because once airborne, thousands of pounds of steel had to remain perfectly stable. Meanwhile, on another section of the base, fighter squadrons were entering their own race against time. Maintenance crews removed engine covers. Radar arrays were tested. Every avionics panel was opened and inspected wire by wire. These jets were not preparing for a routine training exercise. They were preparing for sustained combat sorties. Missiles were lifted carefully onto wingtip rails. Guided bombs were mounted beneath the wings. Weapons technicians plugged wiring harnesses into each weapon so the aircraft's targeting systems could communicate directly with the ordnance. Every bomb, every missile, every release mechanism, checked again and again. The goal was simple. When the pilots climbed into those cockpits, every jet had to be ready to fight immediately. Because the conflict that began with missile strikes could quickly escalate into something far larger. By dusk, the final order came down. Boarding. Soldiers formed into columns outside the hangars and began marching across the airfield. No speeches. No dramatic send-offs. Just the sound of boots on pavement and the distant hum of aircraft engines warming up. One by one, the troops climbed the ramps into the waiting C-17s. Loadmasters conducted final cargo checks. Headcounts were verified. The ramps closed. And then the aircraft began taxiing toward the runway. Moments later, the engines roared to full power. One after another, the transports lifted off into the darkening sky, disappearing toward the Middle East. Hours later, when the aircraft landed, there was no delay. The ramps dropped immediately. Soldiers poured out. Forklifts rolled forward to unload cargo pallets. Vehicles were unchained and driven straight onto the tarmac. The pace was relentless. Because those aircraft wouldn't be staying long. They would refuel, reload, and fly back to the United States for another wave of troops and equipment. For the soldiers stepping off the ramp, the reality was now clear. This wasn't a short mission. There was no return date. And as fighter jets nearby were refueled, armed, and prepared for combat operations, the message was unmistakable. The military buildup had begun. And the world was watching to see what would happen next.